G'day guys, it's time for Pond Life. This time we're doing a top 10 list. Let's get going. Alright guys, this is a call to action. Number 10 is the start of your build. Number 1 is the end of your build. And let's be honest, we never finish building a pond, do we? We keep expanding, we keep adding new plants, new fish, all of that sort of stuff. It's never ending, and that's the exciting part. Now let's get into the top 10 list. Number 10 is vision. Now you got to have a vision of what your pond is going to look like. So if you're struggling with inspiration, one of the best ways to do that is going to someone that you know has a pond and sit by the pond and let those ideas flow through you. Or if you don't have that, you can always go on Google Images to get images. There's so many. YouTube for videos, Pond Life. You could also do Reddit. Facebook groups. Those are the good places for you to get inspiration from. Number 9 is pond location. Your pond location is uber important to your ecosystem that you're planning to build in your yard. So what you've got to do is you've got to figure out where you want it in your pond. Do you want partial shade? Do you want full sun? You've got to think of algae, you've got to think of plant growth. Those are the two biggest things with building an ecosystem in your yard. So you got to think about those things. And with partial shade, normally when you're thinking of nature shade, you're thinking of trees. Now you got to think about the trees that you have around you. Have you put them there, or were they already there? And do they throw too many leaves? So that's something you got to think about. And also this changes depending on what time of the year it is. So you got to look at that plant and those plants around it, and then figure out if that's best to put your pond next to that tree, because the last thing you want is your pond full of leaves, because that would suck. Number 8 is a good one and so important. A lot of people lack to do this. They're just so eager to get their pond put in, and I know it's very exciting, but you've got to study into all the things you need before you get started. Pond liner, pond pump, all of that sort of stuff, the plants you're going to use, the fish you're going to put in, are you going to put snails in, are you going to let anything come into your pond, so do you need fencing around it, all of that sort of stuff. You really have to go in depth on exactly the fundamentals of every little step you want to take in order to get the results you want. So that's really important. Number 7 is levels. So you need to have different levels in your pond. So why? Because there's several reasons. One of those is your plants. Some plants like to be fully submerged, some do not. So you need to have different levels to suit different plants. If you don't, then you become limited on what you can do with your pond. Now, also it's limited of your fish that you have sometimes, because some of your fish like to be up near the shallows, and some like to be in the depths, and it also, that has a lot to do with temperature changes in your pond. So in the winter, when it's colder, the depths are going to be warmer than the shallows, and then vice versa in the summertime. So you really need to think about that when you build your pond. Number 6 is protecting your pond liner. You need to protect your pond liner because your pond liner is the skeleton of your pond, and you need that to make your pond work. So UV rays are a problem. They can beat down on your pond and make holes in your pond, so you do not want that. So substrate and also rocks and all sorts of stuff, that whatever you can get, whatever you can find, put on the edges so you don't have that problem. Also, you can get special pond lining fabric to go underneath your pond liner to furthermore protect your pond from being pierced from within. Root systems can pierce, it's a possibility, so that sort of stuff helps. Also, it helps in the summertime. It helps release that heat out so it doesn't build up too much through the soil, and also the other way around. So in winter, it helps keep the heat in. So that's another idea that you could put towards your pond. Before we get into number 5 on the list, I want to thank everyone for watching so far, and please subscribe if you feel like we're giving you decent content that can help you with your pond. Oh, thank you, Mr. Krabs. Oh, Number five is to be ready with your filtration system. Now, being ready is so important when it comes to the next few things on this list. Now, being ready for your filtration system is you're going to make sure you have the right filtration, the right capacity for your pond, and the right, because some people even, let's interrupt that, some people like me, because I'm crazy, is I full on expand my pond and I keep doing it all the time. So you want to be able to have a filtration system that you don't have to change very often. In fact, it's better not to change at all. So that's my tip. Now, with the filtration, you can have different types. You can have the bog, good old bog filter, and that is designed through plants, and the plants sucking up all that bad nutrients inside of a bog. Or you can have the pump filtration and all of that sort of stuff. I've got a bit of both. The pump filtration I built myself because I wanted to build it on the cheap, but obviously you got to understand when you're first doing it and you actually want to do it by yourself and just get ideas on the internet to DIY your pond filtration, that you'll probably run into some problems and stuff like that, and that's the fun of it. So make sure you're ready with your pond filter. Number 4 is to put plants in your pond straight away. Don't piss fart around and don't be stingy. You really need to put a lot of plants in your pond depending on what size, but you also need to have, it needs to be a stable ecosystem. So you really need to do the right thing by your pond and make sure you put plants in. You can't put fake ones in. You can't just put rocks in there. You really do need plants in your pond. So just remember that when you build your pond. Number 3 is to make sure that everything is doing its job correctly. Because if it doesn't, and you've what it does is it causes an unbalance. And if there's an unbalance, sorry Mr. Krabs, but that's exactly what would happen to your pond. And you need to keep the balance up. So for example, let's say your filtration, if it's not working correctly, it can cause an imbalance. If your pump is not pumping correctly, it can cause an imbalance. If you don't have enough water movement in your pond, waterfalls, all that sort of jazz, you don't have that sorted out, it can cause an imbalance. If you have plant decay or fish decaying in your pond, that can cause a serious imbalance. And also, most of all, you still need to check your water parameters in your pond, the same as you would with a tank. You don't really see people doing it, showing it on camera. I don't see it very often anyways, but you got to do it. It's really important. Just give me 1 sec, guys. I just got to pick up Mr. Krabs. Alright, there he is. Put him back up where he belongs. Good old Mr. Krabs. Now, number 2 is to make sure you do water changes still. It's still a thing. You got to do water changes, and you've got to also top up your water as well, and not just put the hose in and turn it on. You've really got to dechlorinate that sort of stuff like you would in an aquarium, because it's the same deal, it's just outside. So you got to do it. It's important. If you want your water to be crystal clear, you do need to do water changes, because sometimes that helps with the balance that we spoke about. Number 1 is the biggest one ever, and that is to love your pond forever. Now, loving your pond forever means that you're forever giving to your pond, and your pond is always looking good, it's always giving back to you, and it's an amazing relationship between you and your pond. Now, the next thing you do is you invite everyone over to have a barbecue, gather around your pond, talk pond stuff, and tell them all to subscribe to Pond Life, because you got to do that, right? Just joking. But for real, I hope you guys enjoyed this top 10, and make sure you subscribe and support our channel for the future. Mr. Krabs would love it too. He's a champion, and he is the symbol of what's to come when we hit 100 subscribers. We have a huge surprise. So please subscribe, and I will see you next time.